You are listening to the Rewrite the Rules podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Beth.
I'm Natalie.
And I'm Harriet.
Rewrite the Rules podcast releases a new episode every Monday, and we're all about helping you achieve a happier and healthier relationship with food and your body.
We're real people with real life experiences, so you can expect us to be keeping it raw and real in each and every episode.
Don't forget to follow and subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use, and share the love with a friend that you think will love this podcast.
Now, let's get on to the episode.
Hi everyone, welcome back or welcome to the Rewrite the Rules podcast. We are now on episode 45 and you guys won't believe your ears, but prepare to buckle up because on this episode, we are all back together. So you have myself, Harriet here, Natalie and Beth on this episode, which is super exciting.
Yes, we are so happy to be chatting with you all today. We are going to be discussing all things stress and how to manage it. I think the three of us collectively are experts, but we will try and give you our tried and tested tips in hope that we can sort of help you out if you are finding yourself in a stressful situation and just how to sort of navigate yourself through it or out of it.
Exactly that. And before we start, we think it's very important to explain, as silly as it may sound, what stress is to help us fully understand why our body reacts in this way. So stress is your body's way of responding to any kind of demand or threat. So for instance, if you're in a situation where danger is involved or danger is sort of put to you, and this can be real danger, so it's danger in reality, or it can be danger that you've actually imagined, you've sort of made up in your mind. With this, our body reaction goes into defense mode, which you may have heard of as fight or flight mode, or it can be called our stress response.
And this is like your body's basic way of just trying to protect you. And in actual fact, when faced with an emergency, stress can literally save your life. It's giving you things like quicker reflexes, sharpening your concentration, or just giving you maybe an ounce of extra strength. For example, like heaven forbid, a loved one became trapped by an object, your first like stress response may be to actually have that extra strength to free them from whatever they may be trapped by.
Yeah, I'm just envisioning right now like the super mom picking up like the car with the baby stuck under it. Like, have I made that up, or is that in like a movie?
No,
or something?
I'm sure.
The Incredibles.
I've seen it. I've seen people literally in situations, and I'm like, where have you got that strength from? Or even me, I don't know if you've ever had it. If your car's stalled and you're like, I need to like get this moving, and then you'll be like, I'd never be able to do that on a day to day.
Yeah.
I'd never be able to push this car to get it moving had I not been probably stressed.
100%. And even when you are presented with a really stressful situation, sometimes I actually surprise myself with how sort of calm I can be and how like focused I can become to just sort of stay calm and actually get myself out of that situation. Mm-hmm. And there was one instance, actually, I was driving the speed limit, and there was a car in front of me, and they attempted to do like an emergency stop. There's like a scam that people do. They emergency stop in front of you with the intention of you going into the back of them so they can like claim an insurance and things like that. And that was like a very common thing over the last like couple of years. I think they're like trying to get rid of it now, but two men tried to do that to me. And for some reason, I have no idea whether someone was looking down on me, but I managed to just respond instantly, put my foot on the brake. In my head, I was just like, I'm literally going to go back into like straight into the back of these people. But I actually managed to do it quick enough and the car stopped in time. And I was literally like, how the hell did I manage that? Like normally my responses are so delayed, but within that situation literally happened in a matter of seconds. And I prevented essentially a car crash. And I was just so surprised. But that is literally the fight or flight response. Your body responds so quickly without your brain even having like a second to think about it.
Yeah. And like obviously for us girls, when we're walking home at night, I'm like ready to run or ready to, attack. And that's your fight or flight response. That's your stress response. And many instances it can save your life. Obviously, what we're trying to do is show you guys how stress to a certain extent can actually be really helpful. But as I'm sure we are all aware, sometimes stress can stop being helpful. And depending on the context and the amount of stress and how long you've been experiencing this stress for, it can actually put a major strain on both your mental health and your physical health. It can start to feel extremely overwhelming. You can experience that loss of control in your emotions. And of course, it can just have that really negative impact on your mood, your quality of life, your relationship with others, your, like I said, your physical health. So it's knowing the difference between stress that's good and stress that's not so good. That's why in today's episode, we are going to give you tips on how to master your stress, as well as giving you examples of when stress is good and then when stress is not so good.
So yeah, as we've explained, all three of us, and obviously we know because we talk to each other all the time, that we have dealt with stresses at certain points of our life. I think it's a good sort of point to say that, you know, stress has benefited us, but then also we can explain why stress has, you know, had a negative impact on our lives. And then we're going to give you a tip on, you know, how we manage that stress. So for me, when stress has actually benefited me, it was particularly in days of performing. So when dance was my job. And I feel like stress actually really gave me the adrenaline that I needed, also gave me energy. Like that stress sort of, yeah, it just had that impact on me that if I was tired, maybe, and I was like, oh my God, I really don't think I can perform today. I don't think I can do this show. This is the third time of doing it today. It gave me that energy that I needed. And also, now I look back on like videos of me dancing and I think, if you asked me to do that move now, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. Like, I surprise myself when I look at it, and I do actually think that's my body's reaction to stress actually may be making me perform better than I think I'm capable of. So yeah, I think that I always look back at that and I think like, wow, that's strange, but a good thing. But probably last year was the worst year of me managing stress. It became absolutely out of control, and I became extremely overwhelmed, I will say, by work. And it caused me to suddenly have panic attacks out of nowhere. I couldn't manage even the slightest inconvenience, and it made me extremely emotional. And in all honesty, it was absolutely horrendous. All my loved ones around me noticed. I wasn't a very nice person to be around. I wasn't present in any moment. I couldn't sit and relax, watch telly, watch films. I became extremely anxious and just, yeah, so out of control. I felt like these are my emotions, but I feel so out of control of them. I feel like I can't grab a hold of them. And even reactions like I notice with stress, it really impacts my skin really, really bad. I can get like acne out of nowhere when I stress. So yeah, my tips on how I managed this stress, I went through lots of things, like lots of things, journaling, everything. And then my brother has tried to get me onto breath work for like years. And I did try it and I really didn't like it because it made me feel like really, like this really strange feeling, almost like I'm going to pass out. And I just thought, I don't like that feeling. I don't like that buzzy feeling. Like it scares me a little bit. It frightens me what's going to happen. But then my brother was like, you just need to try it. It's supposed to feel that weird tingly sensation. And yeah, he recommended to me Wim Hof. And it's like, you can go on YouTube. It's like a beginner's sort of breath work, you know, exercises, techniques. And I think it's only like 5 minutes. And I did it for the first time and I really committed to doing it. And oh my God, it was literally like I felt this release. And yeah, it felt really weird. And I will say, if anybody tried it for the first time, they're going to be like, whoa, dizzy. But I actually felt like it's the one thing that really released not only like stress, but anxiety, like whatever negative emotion I was feeling that day. And from then, I've carried on. Like I go to breathwork, meditation sessions with my brother. And yeah, it's a release. And if anyone tries it, and I have tried it quite a few times, and I felt like, oh, it's really annoying me. I'm not getting rid of this emotion straight away, maybe like I did last time. at some point in the day, you'll feel like it's been released. It will just like slowly melt away. I would really encourage any of you out there just to try it, because I feel like it's been of such benefit to me.
I love that. Breathwork is amazing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have thought it before. I wouldn't have thought something as simple as, having control of your breath. And like I say, for me to explain it a little bit better, there are books. Like I say, you can go on YouTube, but it's basically using the power of your own breath and using different breathing techniques, such as, rapid breathing, deep breathing. And through this exercise, you're able to basically use this active form of meditation to allow you to disconnect from your mind. So, whatever you're feeling. But because I know, Harriet, you've tried it, but Beth, have you ever tried it?
I've tried it in my own way. I like to envision breathing in, I see it as like white or light or positive or calm, like trying to like physically see that and like breathe it in, and then like breathing out the dark or the stress or the anxiety, or like, and that's like something that I like to do. And I don't know where I've got it from.
Yeah, I love that.
That is definitely a breathing technique that can work, and something as simple as that, because I think sometimes you can get quite confused by all of these techniques, but if it works for you, then 100%.
Definitely. They say your breath is the remote control for your brain in terms of telling it, when are we good, when are we not good? And it's because your breath, because obviously when you're stressed, your breath can, like, without you even noticing, get really heavy and speed up. And so if you actually instruct your breath to like, or control your breath and, breathe deeply and breathe slowly, then your brain can sometimes react and be like, oh, we're all good. The breath is calm, so we must be calm.
Yeah, Harriet, when has stress benefited you?
So I'm a person who has had a fair amount of like stress and anxiety in my life, since I was young, but I've always still been what I would identify as like high functioning. And for anyone who doesn't really know what like high functioning means in this context, it's essentially a way to describe people who are dealing with mental health issues on the inside, but on the outside might be appearing to be absolutely fine and able to deal with managing day-to-day responsibilities, and actually may even be appearing to excel at those responsibilities. And I think part of that excelling can be attributed to the stress or anxiety, but keeping it to the topic of stress, sometimes I have definitely felt that my performance has improved with more stress. And actually, there's this like very famous stress graph, and it's called like the bell curve, and it shows how actually the more stress you have, the higher your performance is, but then it dips again when your stress becomes too much. So it's why it's like a bell curve. But just to give you like an example, during COVID, me and my boyfriend were living in a flat share, and we wanted to move into our own flat. And part of our contract was that it was our responsibility to find a new tenant to take over our room. And during COVID, no one wanted to move to London, because we were living in London. No one wanted to move to London. It was in between a lockdown, but everyone knew another lockdown was coming. And I think I think there were still restrictions on like what you can do and whatever. So anyway, it was like super hard to find a person, but we had like fallen in love with a flat that we wanted to rent, and it had a start date. We couldn't push the start date back. Like, it was either you move in on this date, or if you can't, someone else will get it. Yeah, finding a new flatmate for our other flatmates was pretty difficult as well, because again, like during COVID, no one wants to live with people that, it was just a mess. And I was like, right, this is a problem. I'm going to pounce on this. And every day for a week, I woke up at 5 a.m. and the first thing I did was go into Spare Room, which is an app that you can use to like rent, like find new tenants or like find a place for yourself. And I was messaging randomers who shared any interest or had an ad themselves looking for something that met the description of my flat, honestly, for hours. And I started at 5 because I was still working. So for like 4 hours in the morning, I was just like on this freaking app. I was talking to so many people. I was arranging for so many people who were interested to come to our flat, like on a schedule. And yeah, after a week, we found someone, and it was honestly like a Christmas miracle. I definitely reward myself for like all the efforts I put into that. But if I wasn't stressed, if I was like chilled out about this matter at hand, I don't think I would have found someone as quickly. So I guess that's just to say that stress sometimes can just it can help solve a problem quicker because you're on it. And it's like you've got this problem and then you can just pounce on it and solve it to like the best of your ability. But on the other side of the coin, depending on the problem you have, if it's like a really big problem, then you can be spending way too much time on it. And then if you're in this like fixated problem solving mindset for too long, that can be stressful. Because for me, I definitely would admit that when I'm in this mindset, I can deprioritize like other healthy habits, because I'm like, all my attention, all my strength, all my energy needs to be put on solving this problem. And, you know, if you've got something that could be sorted in like a day or a couple of days or a week, then fine, like nothing's bad's going to happen if I don't, you know, if I have a week of just focusing on this. But, you know, if you have like a month of doing that, you're going to start to feel the impact of that. And I would say there's been times where stress has really impacted me physically. Like I start to get like a stomach ache, really bloated when I'm stressed. I feel sick. I start to feel really bad about the fact that, you know, my eating schedule gets messed up. My sleep schedule gets messed up. You know, I wouldn't bother meditating or journaling, anything like that. I just deprioritize. So when it comes to like how I try to deal with my stress now, it's still problem solve, but also make sure you are prioritizing healthy habits and like try to find that balance. The tip that I wanted to share with you is something that I do a lot actually, is if I have a problem, something that's stressing me out, I'll write a list I'll kind of get a piece of paper, draw a line in the middle, and then on one side, write down what can I control in this situation. And on the other side, write what is completely out of my control. And then the things that are completely out of my control, I like might even fold the paper over, so I don't even see those things anymore. So I can just focus on what can I control in this situation. And then whilst I'm like tackling those things, I also make sure to like set like a happy goal for the day. Like, what's something I can do today to make me happy, or what's something I can do to make me feel calm. So it might be like meditating, or it might be I'm going to take myself out for coffee with a book, like, or I'm going to allow myself to go on like a happy girl walk where I can just listen to music and, you know, not think about anything else except for just enjoying being outside. Or it could be watching Emily in Paris, which I'm just loving at the moment. But you know what I mean? It could just something that gives you just energy and happiness and peace, so that whilst you're problem solving, you're also keeping your mental health in check. So that's my tip. And I obviously also just wanted to add in there, ask for help. Sometimes it's like, especially if you're high functioning, you're like, I'm just going to do this all by myself and not tell anyone. And I'm very guilty of doing that. And it's like, why would you do that when you don't have to?
And I think it's like whenever we get really, really stressed, we start neglecting the things that help us manage stress, as in fueling our body well, having a shower, like all the things that, yes, they're like, we need to do them, but they're also like versions of self-care. And it sort of helps you become stronger to be able to deal with any of life stresses. So if you haven't got any food in your body, if you haven't drunk water in 2 days, if you haven't had enough sleep, you are not going to be able to deal with stress as well as usual. So it's just like a shame that whenever we panic, we're just like, right, food window has just completely gone. I'm not going to get to sleep tonight. And it just sort of snowballs in a way. So just like being aware of it, I think is key. And being able to say, actually, no, I need to hydrate right now. I need to take my happy girl walk. It's like life or death to be able to survive and get through this.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same. I had it last week I got really overwhelmed and stressed, and it literally just reminded me when you were talking there, Harriet. I lose my appetite when I get really stressed,
Me too.
and then I was like, I'm not hungry, and then I hadn't had good sleep all week, and it made me feel so ill. I got the most pounding headache, migraine, and I was like, I feel absolutely horrendous. I actually feel like I could be bedbound tomorrow. I feel that ill, and because it's true, isn't it? When you don't have enough sleep, your actual mind can't process stress in the way that it should do. It actually makes it more difficult.
Yeah.
So not prioritizing that, it's gonna make you feel 10 times worse.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that's so good, because I don't know, sometimes you just forget those things, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the eating thing. And I sometimes I'll look at the clock and it's like, oh my God, it's 3 p.m. No wonder I have this like massive headache. I've barely eaten today. And for me, like once I've got that stress headache, that's it. It's not gone until the next day.
Game over.
Game
Yeah.
over. Even if I eat something, which once I've realized I obviously will, but it still doesn't take away the headache.
I'm definitely one of those people that like my hunger doesn't get affected. Honestly, like the world would have to explode before I don't feel sort of hunger
Love
and want
that.
food. But my issue is that I'm like, right, I'm really hungry right now, but I am so stressed that I cannot focus enough to make myself a proper meal. So I just end up like grabbing snacks constantly. And if you spent all day just grabbing small snacks out of a packet, you're still going to be hungry. You're going to be feeling really unsatisfied. You're not fueling your body properly. And I just end up feeling like crap mentally and physically by the end of the day. So I still feel all the hunger, but the stress for me just like prevents me taking the time and energy just to be able to focus for long enough to even just like make an omelette or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And that's why if you are someone who does go into that high functioning problem solving mode, just kind of think about, for example, like if you had a situation where you were like, yeah, I need to wake up at 5 a.m. to do that, then make your happy goal be having like a good evening routine. Or if you know that sometimes your food schedule gets like all messed up, then maybe you could prioritize like meal prepping some easy meals so that you can just have something on the go. So kind of just like trying as much as possible to just like forward think and be like, okay, if I'm going to do this, if this is how I problem solve, how can I meet that with a healthy habit that will then support my mental health?
definitely always think of your future self. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, even obviously when you feel stressed and when you feel anxious, it never feels like it's going to be a positive learning experience. But for me personally, when I reflect back on all the stresses that I've had in my life, I feel like we are experts. It's really sort of allowed me to grow as a person and to just like push my own limits and my own capabilities. And I don't really talk about my sort of stresses and anxieties that much. A couple of years ago, especially like the first few years that I was with Adam, I used to really struggle with sort of things like if we'd go out for a meal, if like the waitress didn't come to the table to like take your order, you had to get up and like go to the bar. And maybe I have to like say my order and Adam's order. Like I was physically incapable of doing that. I don't know whether it was like the fear of getting it wrong, the fear of muddling my words, the fear of having to remember like two different orders. I just physically could not go up and like order at a restaurant. I couldn't go up and pay for a meal either. I was just like totally filled with fear, totally filled with stress. And I just couldn't do it. It was just way too overwhelming. I had different scenarios like that for the first like couple of years that I was with Adam. And it was only until he sort of started encouraging me to actually like face my fears, constantly pushing me to be like, you can do it, just go up, blah, blah, blah. I was actually able to like grow and become more confident. And now I can do it without even like a second thought. So sometimes I think stress can just like push you out of your comfort zone and just encourage you to be a more confident, better person. And still connecting to fears, because I've got so many stresses and fears that I've had to deal with over my life. I used to have, and still kind of do, had a serious fear of like driving long distances. Couldn't, and like, I mean, like over 20 minutes is like long distance for me. And what you're probably going to be able to tell from this is that I'm like a bit of an overthinker. I'm a bit of a just sort of a stressor, spend too long thinking about all the what ifs. But anything sort of over 20 minutes, half an hour away, I wouldn't really be comfortable driving. And sort of once I'm in the car and doing it, it's not that bad. It was like crippling anxiety beforehand. If I knew I was going somewhere in a week's time, it would really affect like my week leading up, and I'd be constantly thinking about it, constantly worried about it. But there was a moment last year, end of February, where a massive life change happened, and it just caused so much stress, like no other stress that I've ever experienced before, that it actually took away my fear of driving a long distance. I don't know whether I say took away as in this stress was larger than my fear of driving a long distance. So at the time that this stressful thing in my life occurred, my partner Adam was working away, and it was about 2 hours from home, I think. And I was literally that stressed out that I was like, you know what? Like, he's like my safe person. He knows exactly what to do, exactly what to say to just like make me feel sane and okay. So I was like, I need to see you right now. I need to be with you. I am absolutely coming to see you. Like, I'm ready to move mountains to get to you right now. And it was literally the first time that I'd got in the car, set my sat nav up, and just drove without feeling any stress. Like, when I tell you, I felt no ounce of anxiety before or during this drive. And I don't know whether it's just because I just didn't have any more energy to give at that point. Like, my stress level was that high. No one could have touched me at that point. So that's like a moment where obviously it felt horrendous at the time, but that stress actually positively impacted me. I still don't really like want to drive long distances, but I can do it now without crippling anxiety beforehand. And I think, I don't know whether it's just because my priorities like shifted and just something was more important to me than the stress, but I just adapted and grew so quickly, like within the space of like 24 hours, that I just like completely shocked myself. So I think that's an instance where stress, even though it felt horrendous, actually like really positively helped me grow to just be a more confident person. But how it sort of like negatively impacts me, like I related to both of you when you were sharing your experiences, but like my health is one of the first things to go out the window when I feel too stressed, and my productivity goes out the window as well. So I get that overwhelmed that I just can't do anything. I just freeze. And it can be for like the whole day. I'll have a massive list of to-dos and I just get nothing done. But also, like we said before about like food, like I just stop fueling my body, not because I'm not hungry, but just because I haven't got the brain space. I'm like, oh, breakfast isn't important right now. Making a proper meal isn't important right now. And just feeling like completely frozen, completely stuck, and just like watching the whole day go by without even being able to get like one task done. And like the things that would usually help me just like manage stress day to day, like exercise, like going to the gym, I just literally like feel unable to do. Even just going for a walk, I sometimes struggle to just even like physically get out of the house. I think the hardest part is getting out of the house. But that's like how it sort of negatively impacts me. And obviously, like we said before, like fueling your body, hydration, sleep, exercise, they're all like essential things just for you to be a sane, functioning, happy human being. So when stress takes them away from you, it's easy to see how like stress and anxiety just like completely spirals out of control. But that's sort of like my positives and negatives. I've got so many tips to deal with it. Firstly, I'd really try and step back and just ask yourself, have you ticked your boxes today? Have you brushed your teeth? Have you had a shower? Have you made yourself breakfast? Drink a glass of water, sit down, do your skincare, even if it's like 2 minutes long, doesn't matter. Tick like these really basic boxes and then see how you feel, then see how you are able to deal with your stresses. Because it's not necessarily like, making sure you have a shower isn't always going to reduce your stresses, but it can just help you better deal with them and just make you able to cope a little bit better. brain dumping, whether it's to a friend or literally just on a piece of paper, I feel like it's just so helpful to just get it out of your head, just so you can like maybe make sense of it. A lot of the time I'm like, I don't know what I'm stressing about. And actually by brain dumping, I'm then able to see exactly what I'm stressing about. Get off your phone as well. I'm like such a pain in the bum for like going on Instagram or TikTok and just like scrolling when I'm stressed, because I'm like, right, I just want a distraction. But for me personally, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't make me feel any better. It actually makes me feel worse. It feels like you think it's the solution at the time, but then it's 2 hours later, all you've been doing is scrolling and you feel worse. I don't know whether that's from being unproductive, whether it's from just seeing everyone else living their happy, stress-free lives. I don't think it's helpful. So just like trying to take time away from your phone, I think is really helpful. Trying to do something else with your hands. I know a lot of people would maybe suggest things like reading as like a good task to help you de-stress. But for me, every time I try and pick up a book, I'm just sort of reading the same line over and over and over again. And it doesn't go in my head. So like reading is something I do when I'm trying to like, I'm like already in my calm space. You know, we mentioned like last week on the podcast about like knitting and things like if you're a knitter, go for that. That's amazing. I've got like a big book of Sudokus. I think that's how you say it. That helps me get engaged. It's not too difficult. It doesn't require too much thinking power, but it's also something to do with my hands. And that's just like a good sort of distraction task for you to do. Like you mentioned, Nat, I really like breath work as well, like my own version of breath work. And if you can get yourself out the house as well, a happy girl walk, that's always amazing. But I love podcasts as well. Obviously, you can listen to our podcast if you're ever feeling stressed and wanting a calm voice or distraction. But yeah, they're my sort of tips. I feel like I've got endless ones because we're a very stressed individual.
No, I love those tips. They're amazing. I thought it was really interesting as well what you were saying earlier about how the massive stress that happened in your life the end of Feb last year kind of overrode the stress of driving. I feel like stress can often be like comparative. So if we have like one stress, but then followed later in life, we have a massive stress, suddenly that first stress, you're like, oh, that's nothing. That's nothing compared to what I'm going through right now. So it almost minimizes all the other little stresses in your life, which I think can be good at putting things into perspective in terms of a lot of the times our stresses are how we think about them. Because if you can compare it to something else, it's either smaller or bigger.
No, and I think as well, it is really important. Like you said, it's not a nice thing, because when something more stressful is put to you, it does make you feel like, oh, well, that thing there, like it's nothing. But I think, everything that you explained there, like there are such useful tips, and I completely get what you mean when you say you go to read and you end up reading the same line over and over again, because somehow, I don't know what it is about reading, it's the same for me, it makes me feel like, it just makes me think more sometimes. Like reading for me is really good before I go to sleep, but I think doing something that completely takes your mind off of thinking, such as, I know you always say that when you pay, what is it? It's just dance, isn't it? On Wii.
Yeah.
It just takes your mind completely off it. And for me as well, dancing, because I'm focusing so much on what my body is doing, it distracts me completely. So I think so many tips there that people can take away.
Definitely. And I think that's why I have to like problem solve, because I'm like, how can I read a book when I know there's like things I can be doing to like fixing this problem? That's how my brain works. It's like, and that's why it's just like, do everything you can that's reasonably possible. You know, don't exert yourself, just do whatever you can. And then you can like almost like reward yourself. And so if you're someone who struggles to like, you know, set happy goals or do happy things when you're going through a stressor, then maybe that might be a nice way to think about it. Like do what you can, but then reward yourself with wellness behaviors. And then that's how you can kind of get both.
Thing that I want to say lastly is that it can be quite difficult. But a lot of the time, like we say, our stresses are things that we've made up in our minds. So when you're doing a brain dump, like Betha said, brain dump what are stresses that are actually real and what are ones that are made up, and then work on one by one the ones that are reality and how you can work through them, what you can do to solve them. Look at the ones that aren't real and say, I'm making these up. I need to remove them. I need to breathe them in, let them go, because there's nothing that you can do about these. And you're only going to be going round and round in your head with these imagined stresses. You're never going to be able to solve them because they aren't real.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I always tell my boyfriend, I'm always like, do you think this would actually happen? He's like, no. It's like, it's literally not like saying to them, like to your partner or to a friend, like, have I just made this up? And then a lot of the times they'll be like, yeah, you've just made that up. And then you could be like, okay.
And something you said to me, Harriet, I think it was last week, you asked me the question of, oh, what are you scared of? Like, what is the worst thing that's going to happen? Like, because I sort of get like pre-stressed about situations rather than experience many actual stressful situations. I just worry about the beforehand, and then once it's done, I'm literally like, what? Because I worried about.
And it's so annoying. You end up stressing yourself out twice instead of the once. Like, you're putting two amounts of stress on you. If you're going to stress in the moment, but then when it's over, you beat yourself up because you're like 99.9% of the time, the situation turned out way better than you stressed beforehand about it.
Yeah, so true. Never worry twice.
No. Yeah, I love that though. Thank you, girls. It was to hear all of your tips, and I'm definitely going to be taking some of those away for myself when I get stressed.
Yeah, I'm going straight to YouTube to type in Wim Hof. Is it Wim Hof?
Wim Hof.
Wim
it's
Hof.
Close enough.
Close enough. I'll find him.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100%. And guys, if you know anyone in your life at the moment who is stressed, then why don't you share this episode with them? There should be a button on whatever platform you're listening to this on where you can just be like, share, WhatsApp, send, and in 3 clicks they can have us in their ears. So yeah, please do that. Yes.
Hopefully we can bring you back down to earth a little bit. I think that's maybe all you need as well, just like listening to half an hour of us chatting.
Yeah,
all your stresses will be gone.
Yeah, you'll forget that you're stressed. But yeah, thank you just so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yes. Bye-bye. See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.